our meetings.
Okay, so can you join the meeting, please?
Oh, situation.
Okay.
I guess we can. We got agenda, we got minutes.
Look at us, organized.
Good to know.
Smiling faces, we're all delighted.
All right, you should be promoted to a panelist.
Yes, I'm promoted.
And now if you can just go ahead and share your screen.
You're my designated as our chair.
Content on the end. No. We got it.
Okay. All right, so now you can make this bigger.
There you go.
Right.
See, everybody wants to be a part of this because it's so much fun.
Yes.
It's a good way to start.
Right.
It is.
Shall we begin?
Thanks.
All right, welcome. This is the Measure P Subcommittee. It is February 23rd at 10 a.m. We are initiating the call to order. I think we should take attendance. Councilmember Bushy.
Present.
Councilmember Hill, present. Both committee members are present. Who am I turning over to?
Well, if you want, why don't we do just a round of introductions, because we have, I know at least one new face here, but why don't we start with you, Andrea, and then we'll just go around the room.
I'm Andrea Vicious-Schwarb, Chief Assistant City Attorney, Legal Counsel to the city.
Dustin Albo, I'm Pre-Development Director at Griffin Structures, and nice to see everyone.
I'm Gary Chubb with Griffin Structures, the project executive and the dedicated project manager for your new library, new center project.
John Stefanski, Assistant City Manager.
Catherine Kufa, Library and Recreation Director. Cheryl Lentini, representing the Library Foundation Board.
Dan Avalos, Assistant Library and Recreation Director.
Craig Berry, Assistant Library and Recreation.
April Miller, Public Works Director.
Very good. Bushy, member of City Council.
Eli Hill, member of City Council. All right, moving to our next order on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have any comment or motion on this item?
I have no comments, no corrections, and I move that we approve the minutes of the July 28th meeting.
Second, I'll do roll call. Elizabeth Bushy, council member.
Aye.
Eli Hill, council member. Aye. That motion is approved. We move on to open time for public expression. Is there anybody who wishes to make a public comment? I see people just coming in the room. Any public comment? Or do you wish to make a public comment? We'll close the public comment period and move on to reports and actions items. The first item is draft facility 4A, draft facility program and budget.
All right, well, I will kick us off. Good morning, everyone. We are very excited to be here for this meeting. Since the last meeting, we brought on Griffin Structures, and over the last couple months have been working with Gary and Dustin, as well as our internal staff working team here to start framing up what does a proposed potential program for a new library and community center look like. Prior to beginning this work, Measure P, the Citizens Initiative, did a lot of work and taking a look at what a new library would look like. But we needed to also do some work around, well, what does a community center component of a project look like? Where are the areas of overlap? And then how does that, look at overall square footage and what a total building size could be under the financial assumptions we have with the revenue generated by Measure P. And so Gary and Dustin have a presentation here. They're going to walk through all of that work, as well as an initial look at what a budget would be for this project. And then we'll pause there before we go into the second item, which is more on the project delivery methods that staff's looking for feedback on specifically. So I'll hand it off over to Gary and Dustin.
All right, again, thank you for the opportunity to serve on this project. We are very excited. As John said, we spent the last 2.5 months doing a lot of heavy work, a lot of foundation as the project will move forward. So with that, we're going to talk. We have about 15 slides, maybe 20 to 30 minutes This is not always a presentation, it's a dialogue, so stop us anytime, ask us a question, because I do believe we have about 50 or 50 more minutes to go, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna look at,
As you kick off, it's helpful for us if you let us know ahead of time what input you would like from us, if any. Are there any particular topics?
no, I think it's gonna be organically apparent as we go through the slides. So feel free if you have a program discussion or a budget topic, just chime in and then we'll always have some Q&A at the end. So let's make it iterative as best we can. So the first item is initial draft program. And then the second item is project delivery method and direction. So on the initial draft program, I will have Mr. Dustin Alamo take you through.
Okay.
And Catherine and John, feel free to chime in as we go through each one.
Okay, so yeah, as reference, we've developed a draft program to kind of give a framework on what is to be built, kind of the ingredient list of the cake that's going to be baked. It's not final, it's an iterative process. So kind of explain how that was created and where we are today and what's left to evolve that program. So in terms of how it was developed, we followed a very structured process, very deliberate, had site walks with existing staff of the existing facility, and a number of workshops to talk through what is needed, what are the operational challenges, what are we looking to achieve as part of this measure. And then also looked at peer benchmarking, similar size facilities in California. What are they doing? What are the square foot per capita requirements? Everything from volumes to number of reader seats to technology seats. Developing alongside with the city. Also looked at service demand, where are the gaps, what could be better, and then took all of these programmatic scenarios and tested them, kind of stress tests against different cost scenarios. So, programming is a great place to kind of, vet out ideas, kind of dreams, and then you narrow it down to kind of service, best value and cost, and come down to what I think we've presented today or what we will be presenting today. So it's an iterative refinement of kind of ideas to what you really need. So as we did that refinement process, we've approached it with a number of kind of core principles, guiding principles, if you will. Certainly core library and community services are at the forefront of that, making sure that they align with expectations of the bond and the community. There's still much outreach that has to be included into that process, but as a starting point, we are talking with staff that are there in the facility every single day, hearing what the community is looking for. We're bringing our expertise in terms of real-time programming across the state of California and the Bay Area. So merging all these ideas into a program that we think is a reliable starting point, then we're going to fold in that outreach through the process into design. So again, balancing these aspirations with affordability and making sure we're just compliant with Measure P overall. So what are we really delivering here? As John mentioned, we've got the library, community center, and a bunch of joint use space in between. And so this is kind of an integrated civic hub that we're looking at. Certainly modern library services from adult, teen, child, seniors, flexible classrooms and enrichment spaces. We'll have that community aspect, community service aspect with multi-purpose room, the event space, and really just looking at, enhancing programming across both of those into kind of a modern approach to those types of services. Also looking at not just where the envelope of the building stops, but, can we move into and just, expand upon what can that site deliver. So we'll first look at the interior elements, and then I've got a slide for exterior as well. From an interior perspective, the building program sits around 50,000 square feet total. It begins with a lobby, or we're calling a community living room. So instead of just a dead space you walk through, kind of activating that into areas where you can sit. There's certainly reference desks and circulation and checkout. So you have the ability to kind of engage, the circulation of the building in a different way. Certainly adult, children, teen spaces that, respect collection, reading areas, tech areas, all within their certain areas specific to the square foot per capita requirements. Group study and collaboration areas, so study rooms. We have some small meeting spaces that are going to be offered for conferencing, for tutoring, things like that. A majority of the space here is dedicated to multi-purpose and enrichment spaces, so that can be shared between library, community center, just a myriad of different options there. And as I referenced here in the description, so event space, classroom, art room, library of things, fitness rooms. You have your lifelong learning center, so that's going to be, kind of your dedicated senior space, golden era sport, and then staff, building services, and growth circulation, kind of back of house support for the facility. And we have a whole detailed list beyond this. This is kind of just a snapshot to not overwhelm everyone.
And something that might, the square feet, like for me, I'm like, I don't know what that means, right?
Okay.
So for adult, it's about an 82% increase over what we currently have. Children's, it's about 150% increase over what we currently have, and teen, it's about a 225% increase over what we currently have.
Thank you, Catherine. That's important.
Catherine, Singport, the size of the current main library?
The size, it's about 16. It's less than that actually. Well, it's about 12.
Is that usable or gross?
Gross. Oh, it's 12.5. Yeah, I think there was. Anyways, yeah. Current. So it's about the total building square footage is double. If you add the community center and library together, it's double that.
We're also looking at this kind of holistically for your community, because some of the libraries will be going down into service. And so, looking at the aggregated square footage on library square footage across the community, that's the square foot per capita calculation. So that's all kind of in alignment with the measure P 0.7 to 0.75 square foot per capita requirement.
I think that just the other thing I'd note is, there are a number of levers we were trying to balance. There's kind of the requirements of measure P, there's budget, and then there's also the site and what will really fit at Albert Park. And I think some of that is there's still questions there that as we begin working with architects in the community and hear kind of how much park space versus building space, it's gonna be refined.
Very flexible. This is a snapshot of where we are today, but to Catherine's points, there's room for improvement, push and pull, flexibility, input, things like that. You have not missed that opportunity whatsoever.
Yeah, design has like 4 key phases as they progress through the design process, essentially. So, concept development, schematic design, design development, construction documents. That's, a year of things that have to kind of be evolved from where we are today. So we're just at the surface.
Starting point.
Yeah.
Have a starting point.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Better word.
If I can, when I look at the descriptions of the program components to the approximate square footage, on my reading of it, it does seem that there's a strong favoritism toward library programmed areas versus community. Is that a right interpretation? And I'm not judging it. I just want to make sure I'm seeing that right, if other people see it the same way.
I think there's a focus towards multi-purpose space that can serve both. There certainly are dedicated community center spaces, the event space, for instance, that can hold up to 300 people at the dedicated kind of community center use, though the library could certainly lean into that. But, to try and, make sure we weren't losing space of what you currently have, that was looked at too. We're replacing at least the minimum of that, but also giving, the enhancement of library service and having that kind of crossover between joint use space. So, you could probably create a slide just like this and just make it a little bit more community oriented as well. So, but I don't think it's favoring one or the other, really. It's just looking at it more of like a integrated facility with joint use opportunity.
I think that voiceover is helpful. Just if the slide were on its own, I think it would be easy to interpret that way. So thank you for sharing it that way.
Or to put this slide in with your Venn diagram on slide and categorize these.
But I think, I mean, that multi-purpose and enrichment space, I mean, there's a lot that's in that line. There's fitness room, there's an art room, there's classrooms, there's a, you know, a replacement event space. So I think you're right. Like you could, if we pulled those all out, it would,
Yeah, I
the
think that.
number of lines would.
I think that's right. I think
even
that
out.
one line is probably a very heavy
Yeah.
line. Yeah, appreciate that.
That's also a
It's a
facility.
library of things.
And there's a lot of things that are, you know, like the entryway, the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many of these things that are dual purpose
Mhm.
that would be in the middle of your Venn diagram.
It's always difficult to thread the line between summary level and the detail. Everyone wants the detail, but you can't really present the detail in a meaningful way, something like this. So, but understood. Any more questions on this slide? Okay, so we'll move to exterior program. Kind of a similar summary level of that. This is probably a little bit easier in some sense. So we will, as part of the exterior program, be including an accessible children's playground. So an inclusive play area, about 12,000 square feet, replacing some picnic and green space as part of this, about 10,000 square feet, Lone Teze garden, essentially replacing that similar size of what's there today. And then looking at patio exterior covered areas where there'd be an extension of, you know, from an event space kind of roll out into an open patio area and putting those around the building to give opportunity for additional exterior programming. Adult fitness area, small, but, you know, having little areas around the facility for, you know, some active lifestyle wellness equipment. And then some support area, 300 square feet, pretty small, but just, you know, back house things. So almost 32,000 square feet in exterior program. You know, this does not include parking at this point. We're going to be integrating that as part of the, you know, next steps with the design team once it come on board. And, you know, it doesn't include all the site circulation and setbacks and all that. This is just kind of programmable space that you would be using on an individual basis. And then all the filler, you know, setbacks and circulation between those elements will be part of what a design team needs to plan the site properly.
Kevin, could you remind me, what is the scope of the site?
Albert Park?
Is it all, the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're considering.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it considered right now modified, or is that considered a fixed, or that has not been determined yet?
That hasn't been determined yet, as we're still trying to kind of stress test what the program is and how does that connect with our overall funding availability. That's where there's going to be more conversations with this group as well as the community on how does all this come together? Because as Catherine said, the team put together kind of like a rough like stress test of, I say stress test, but just like a test case of what a 50,000 square foot facility looks like in the existing area where the building is. And it's a lot. And when you factor in the need for parking, then the equation becomes a little more complicated. And so that's why when we get our design team on, we'll be kind of coming back to you all to kind of ask these questions around what is what's a policy decision around how this thing's going to be parked? How does it interrelate with the existing elements of the park, so on and so forth.
This is getting into details, but I have two more questions around the footprint. So is the bocce ball area considered fixed? That is not.
I think our goal is to maintain the existing level of recreational programming.
Yeah.
Like not to remove any existing recreation programs. And I think once you start touching more things, then obviously that has budget impact, right? So it's all these levers, just trying to find the right balance.
No, I totally understand. And one more nit on this, query. The playground, in terms of its current footprint, is this identical or is this an expansion?
Expansion.
So it would be a potential replacement of the existing equipment and footprint.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I think the playground is very much something that we'll want to reconsider. I know the 2021 kind of very preliminary study we did showed that it really can't remain in that location and accommodate the larger building.
With parking.
Oh,
Yeah, parking's a dynamic equation these days, with every project, public and private, where parking ratio.
dynamic, it's more of a headache, but.
Oh, yeah, it take.
Expensive.
Let me rephrase that, the old way of parking is much more based on formulaic number of stalls per square foot of facilities and such, and the modern is, how can we be green? How can we be proactive with buses and bikes and other things? So there's policy decisions and there's recommendations to come down the road that allow the city to feel comfortable with the right amount of spaces and such like that. So we've got, that'll be in the next step.
And I think the flow of the site and how to create a more integrated site where those different pieces speak to each other better. I mean, right now you've got the building backing onto the field and there's not a good connection. There's not kind of like that sense of cohesion at the site. So that's something we'd want to make sure is included in this.
Oh, yeah, and it's broader than just on the site,
Absolutely.
cohesion with the rest of the city.
Right,
And
yeah.
that gorgeous view up
Yep.
to
A
Jim Rayfield's, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, if there's not any questions on program, we'll move to budget. Let me say a few words first. What Dustin said earlier is, as we develop program options, in a parallel, we stress test the funds you have allocated and what you can buy for those funds. So it's kind of works together and in tandem, and that's what we've been doing over the last. We got through the holidays with the draft program, and we spent a lot of time in January up to a couple of weeks ago on how to balance dollars and vision. So right now, all in at the bottom, you'll see 105 million is the number. And right now, this is a very high level summary. There's math and line items, again, in a bigger report behind this. But these are the categories that we typically would roll up and just summarize in a meeting like this. One is your construction cost, which is all inclusive of the building and the parking and the program, all your sticks and bricks. We have a base building construction, 52 million, which is based on the 50,000 square foot program at your primary building. We have some floodplain premiums identified at this stage because we know we have some groundwater and some challenges to deal with. Those are placeholders. We have site improvements and demolition, 9.8 million. And we have escalation, which is basically inflation in our marketplace to identify a project budget today, knowing it's not going to start for a couple of years and be finished until about 5 years. This is simply inflation in the industry. It averages at low points 3.5% to 4%. In times of high pressure inflation, you can get to 5% to 7%. So there's a range we're using. We're right in the middle today.
COVID, we saw 13%.
Yeah, COVID just knocked the industry on our what. So that you don't see that. There was no value in escalation. You don't get a return on it. That's just, if we were breaking ground today, that would be a much lesser number. So that makes up sort of the construction cost. Item 2 is professional services and fee. That's your architect. That's the Griffin Structures services. That is testing inspections, soil samples and geotechnical investigations, things like that. Item 3 is your furniture and special equipment, which is primary 3 items: your furniture, your book managing system, your audiovisual components, and your security systems. Those are the 4 primary components that make up line item 3. Then lastly, and importantly, we have a contingency. We are at a program level estimate right now, and we have several reiterations to go through over the next 18 months to land on the best and final number. And course of construction contingency, that's an appropriate contingency at this point. As we go through the process over the next couple of years, that contingency will start to drop as we gain more assurance and buy-in of what the price is. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And we always reserve a percentage of course of construction for unforeseens and stuff like that. That's normal with any project. So those are yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the contingency, 10%. That seems very low for this
Actually, it's right in line. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it's right in line, you know, Griffin doesn't have a problem with it. And at this point, between construction and design, that 10% should carry us the day. We have to be obviously disciplined and focused and mindful of it, but, and structured, but that should do it.
Well, and your escalation gives you close to another 10%.
Exactly.
So that takes out the inflation risk.
That's right. You're exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also a bigger percent of the construction costs, so contingency in my mind is mostly hopefully in the construction area,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Okay.
So 9.5 million of a $74 million construction.
So it's really more
Yeah,
than
a little
10.
bit more,
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a little bit more than just the 10% for construction course of
the
construction.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question and comment on this one.
Absolutely.
So I'll take the implicit part and make it explicit. We selected Griffin Structures because we trust your professional opinion. So I just wanted to just state it explicitly and have you react to what I'm going to say, which is of how projects like this might be divided. In other words, San Rafael might not, even though we believe we're pretty unique, that this is pretty much in line with how you might approach another community or have approached other communities in terms of how you might break down cost estimates. Is that accurate?
You know, that formulates these things, but this is our practice in the public sector over this type of project for the last several years. This is how we structure at this high level program level a budget like this. You're exactly right.
And then two follow-ups to that, which is there anything unique to San Rafael that might judge this a little bit one way or the other in another community?
That's a great question from a code standpoint or an existing conditions, you know, like the site, you know, challenges that the site gives us. Your water table, your sea level rise and the lifespan of this facility at the site is unique.
Mhm.
The other thing that we can see on building, we think we know we have enough money in here to give you a very nice building, and we talked about it for a month. So we're comfortable, but if there was a San Rafael specific vision or the building had to be a very specific type of architecture or expression, that has to be thought through clearly as we go down the budget process.
Mhm.
Other than those two, you know, parking will have an important factor on cost and most importantly, how the site can be used and the opportunities the site delivers. You know, you can have a sea of asphalt to meet a parking code, or you can get creative and do something less and have more square footage for outdoor programs. So that'll weigh into it as we get down the road. Well, I think those are the three that come to my mind. Anything to add?
I would add that building and site, unit pricing is specific to this geography. And so that does make it specific. So that's been integrated into this. Our estimating team looks at all the database and, they track costs in different regions. And so that has been embedded into what we're seeing here.
And this is obviously public work, so it's all based on prevailing wage, which is a premium above private sector. That's all factored in here. That's
Thank
all
you.
Griffin does.
That's super helpful to know that. And then finally, and this is my layperson look at the numbers. When I see 1.7 million for floodplain premium, that in my mind, that seems like that you could burn through that very, very quickly. It might be low. How would you rationalize that 1.7 is sufficient estimate for?
We're not going subterranean, meaning where the building is going to sit on the existing grade. We're not digging a huge hole to put an underground parking structure or a basement into the building. So the risk should be within the first 5 feet of below your floor, where your foundations live and your utilities live. That should be your primary risk on what the water can do to the lifespan of the building. On other projects we've seen where you do dig, a 3-story hole in the ground for parking and stuff like that, the risk goes way up exponentially. So the fact that we have a building that sits on the existing surface is a win, and that's should carry this. These are allowances. These are historical things we've seen. much more study has to go into this, but at this point, I don't personally feel the 1.7 is too low, but what I know today.
That's super helpful.
Yeah.
That assumption is in there that we are not considering anything subterranean here.
No.
Because what I'm imagining, and what here you see is if we did
I
that.
probably wouldn't be here sitting here today.
Yeah, just anecdotally, we had that conversation. I think it was either April or John had said it's like it would be the city's newest aquatics facility.
That's right.
Everywhere to.
Exactly.
Swimming pools is part of the.
It's in a part of the, and we're not looking to pick up
If I could
another
add
pool.
to, you know, the existing or the building as shown here, building construction, that includes a conventional foundation system. So the cost for foundations are embedded in that $52 million number. This is just a premium on top of that if we have to go really deep to, you know, tie down the building or, you know, whatever the conditions we find.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there are premiums for the, you know, type of concrete and rebar you use when the water's, if your foundations are sitting in a bathtub, there's some premiums to that. All doable. It's not super scary stuff, but there's a premium that we've carved out until we know more.
Yeah, you're calling this a premium instead of a contingency. So I'm gathering that you're presuming that this will be needed.
Yes, at this point, based on what we know and on the reports we've been given, we think some level of this will be needed.
Okay. You just need to work it out with the engineering team.
Yeah.
Does this all settle well with you? Okay.
Okay, this is where we have our first next steps in terms of community outreach. Right now we have two validate and inform draft program. This is a city decision, how much you want to engage your community based on what you just sort of heard today. Because in the big picture, if we stay on schedule, the architect that comes on board will not be on board until this fall. Okay, so between now and then, there's time to make sure the city staff, this room, and your community stakeholders have seen what we've done so far, are comfortable with that, ask any critical questions. That is up to this room to decide, yeah, of course we're doing that, or hey, let's talk about that, and we can see what that looks like. It could be as easy as a survey, because we're not at the pretty picture point where they're seeing what the building looks like. That comes in the next round of community outreach, which will start after an architect has drawn all these pretty renderings to discuss options. This is an initial outreach to say, what do you think about the 50,000 square feet? What do you think about the program we come up with? Any ideas? That's what this is meant to be.
And if I can jump in,
Yeah.
you know, I think as I've been thinking about this, I almost see this maybe in a couple of stages. One, we have the stakeholder committee that we've established. And I think going through and having that conversation about the draft program, probably that greater level of detail, getting the feedback there, that's something I think would be really valuable at this point. And then I do think a community survey that maybe isn't getting reaction to the program, but is saying what elements that we envision here are important for you. And really not saying pick all that apply, but asking which of these does the community prioritize? Because even in this process, you know, I can tell you the first building we came up with was way out of budget. And, you know, we had to kind of make decisions on how to cut, and we may have to cut further. And I'm at a point where I would value, does the community, is a larger fitness state area more important than a stage? You know, what are the programmatic elements that our community really, really values?
Well, I want to get you that input, but it's going to have to be very carefully worded so that people can make that offset. Because we have a group of our formal stakeholder group who represent an even broader group, though, of people that are very savvy and understand that this non-pretty part of this is the important part, because it's going to drive how pretty everything else can get.
That's right.
So there's a lot of people that are going to want, I think, to have input, or not so much input, to review this and get the sense that we have of, okay, this makes sense and this is consistent with our views. But that's one group, and they're all, I think, represented, or our goal was to have them represented by the stakeholder group. And then there's the broader community that needs questions like, is fitness important to you, or is the stage important? Questions like that. And I will leave it to your professional expertise as to how we would go about obtaining that level of input. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and maybe even to build on that, and I apologize that this might even make it even more, so what's the opposite of consolidating? Moving even further afield is that we also have two advisory boards that intersect with this, which is the Board of Library Trustees as well as Park and Rec, because there are Park and Rec assets. So I'm curious how that would be, how we use those two distinct boards and committees to, how is that tied into community engagement?
Well, each of them has a representative on the stakeholder group. But I think I'm very excited about the idea of holding a joint library board and Park and Rec Commission meeting on a somewhat regular cadence to just review this. So I think we'd probably have the stakeholder meeting, get their feedback, refine a little bit more, and probably in the summer, fall, do an update with both with kind of a joint meeting of the library board and Park and Rec Commission.
Great. Yeah, and I think just to tie it back, and I'm going to state what I think is probably obvious, which is that the voters passed this on specific language as it was written, and obviously with everything I would hope would tie back to that. And I think the good news is that there is a sufficient amount of latitude that many permutations are possible inside of the budget envelope and the wishes of the voters. So I think that's obvious, and I'm excited that whatever process we imagine will honor that.
Are you going to say something?
Well, I think I'm just gonna underscore what Councilman Bushy said, which is how you frame the input question matters, because if it's just open-ended, you end up with another building that blows any budget. So it's more about trade-offs, which is here's where you landed, and so where's the push and pull on that? Like one example that came up, and I missed it in your cost estimate. I think, did you mention like kind of banquet facility, kind of community space? Does that contemplate a commercial kitchen in the facility?
It does.
Yes.
Okay. Because that's a cost element.
Yeah.
It's like, how important is that?
Yeah, because that's a big ticket
It's a
item.
big ticket.
You need it to support that type of space, though.
Is there one there now?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Sort of.
I think it's certified. I've been in that kitchen.
Okay.
Today's
There's some things that
Yeah,
There's some
cost per square foot.
designated as kitchens.
It's like- it's like gas.
County would.
gas filling.
Picturing this like, there's differential cost per square foot depending on the element. So when you're kind of doing the trade-offs, you know, switching 10,000 square feet of this for 10,000 square feet of that may not be
Apples to apples.
apples to apples.
Very good point.
Just to,
Some spaces, some uses within a structure are
Yeah.
higher premium,
Right.
lower than others.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do
Commercial
think
issues.
having a commercial kitchen in this building is gonna be.
You only
pretty-
want to do this once and you want to do it right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It would, well, it's important, but I'd love to see the price tag for it. Because I believe they're very expensive.
Well, any kitchen's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely more. I
And
don't think it's.
Well, that begs the question of,
it's a
you know, how
spatial
often is
aspect
it
to it.
used? Is it used for revenue generating
Extensively.
purposes? Is it,
that's a big revenue generator for the recreation.
that's a whole program element within the program element?
yes.
And I think, I mean, one thing we would love to be able to support more of is cooking classes. And so I think that's something we would is revenue generating. I think there's a huge demand in the community. And that's kind of creates a multi-use. Right now, it's the kitchen, all that it does is support the event space, but we could design this kitchen to provide more benefit.
Also the size.
Yeah, those. Yeah. Revenue.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's our first part on the agenda here, but we'll pause for any other questions or comments from the subcommittee or the public before we move on to the second item.
Councilmember Bushy, should we open it to the public?
Sure.
All right. We're on agenda item 4A, the opening for public comment for folks in the room. Close public comment. Any final questions and comments from this item? I know that we've interleaved our own questions and
Yeah.
comments throughout. So
All set, Martin. ready to move on.
Excellent.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna tee this up briefly and then I'm gonna hand it off over to Gary, because one of the kind of primary major policy questions that we have for the subcommittee comes down to what's gonna be the project delivery method for this. I know through the essential facilities process, we did a traditional design bid build approach. We have a lot of learnings. I'm looking at April, who's not looking at me, but we have a lot of learnings from that process, but there's been some changes in state law. And when we had Griffin here in July, they did a little bit of a primer around just the various options that we have. And I will note that the conversation that we're having today parallels one that the County Board of Supervisors had several months back regarding the new county fire headquarters in Woodacre, around what are the options, what's the best approach, what are the values that drive that decision. And this is our initial opportunity to get that feedback from the subcommittee, but this is one of those larger policy decisions that would require either a study session or a larger conversation with the full city council, because depending on which way we go, there are kind of trailing other policy implications that we'll dive into here in a little bit. But with that, hand it up to you all to kind of walk through the three things that we're looking at.
Yeah, thanks, John. So if project delivery obviously is a single tagline of how you structure the project, architect, contractor during construction and things like that. As John said, there's traditional at the bottom. I'll start at the bottom. There's traditional design bid build, which is the most widely used in public sector for the last, call it 100 years. It's your traditional where you hire an architect that's contracted to the city. They do all their plans and specs and estimates, and then you put it out to public bid. And the lowest bid with the contract with the lowest bid that has a bond and some insurance wins it. And then you kind of struggle sometimes through the construction, but it gets done. That's the conventional way. Several years ago, California got on board and has been using what we call traditional design build, which starts to get a little more creative. There's nuances on that. There's time advantages versus conventional. Design build is widely used in California. So there's no, can we do this kind of questioning? Who's been doing this lately? Things like that. It's a solid method. And then there's the one that Griffin had, as John said, sort of identified last July as our preferred, and was a great opportunity for your project, which is progressive design build. And really the only difference between traditional design build and progress is if how you procure your partners, meaning contractor and architect, and what you're buying from those people and when. And what I mean by that is design build, you typically hire a starter architect that does what's called bridging documents. And you put that, it's usually about schematic design. And then you put that out to market to a set of design builders, architects and contractor teams. And that's kind of what you buy. You've locked yourself into a bridging document, a schematic solution, and you go to market and that's what you're buying. And that's what they'll finish the design and build your project to.
Different architects.
Different architects. Yeah, you can't have an architect do your starter package and that architect is conflicted from being on a design build team once it goes to market. What I love personally, and Griffin loves about progressive, is that you're not soliciting an RFP that has any set design parameters at all. Okay, there's no building size. There's no, there's a program and a vision that you explain. But what you're doing is you're hiring a team based on their qualifications, what they've done before, similar projects, how many years in public sector, how many libraries, communities have they done, things like that. You're buying a team you feel comfortable working with. You're interviewing that team to say, who are you and what have you done before and how can you help us get the best output of our project? Then once that selection's made, you don't have a price or a design yet. What you do is now all the work that we're doing today that leads up to this moment, You invite in the progressive design team and you say, this is our budget. That's it. Design revisions coming, we work together as a team and we together with that designer and art and contractors decide what you want to do before they've decided for you. And then the design process starts, the estimating process starts, and then you get back to more of a design build delivery. That is the real nuance of it. And so you're hiring a team that you think have good qualifications, good history, good working together with each team. You have a question because I see your face is going, I don't understand this. I don't believe it. So let's pause and have you ask a question.
It's actually worse than that. I don't like this. I understand what you're proposing and I don't like it. And here's why. I'm a believer in extraordinary design. And hiring people based on the fact that they've done this before and they've got they check all these boxes doesn't get me out there talking to a bunch of different architects that can bring me unique, different designs. And maybe they show up and say, we can do this spectacular thing, but you've got to lose the commercial kitchen. And then we can say, well, maybe we'll lose that commercial kitchen because this is so amazing. I'm 100% nuts and bolts, but design is just so important that I don't want to get locked into. I want to have a menu of architects that we can choose from, and that they bring us wildly different ideas so that we can pick from it. So that's my concern. So the artistic merit of your proposal, I guess, seems, I'm using Olympics terms here. Your technical merit is high, artistic merit is a little low. I want to have more of a program, and I'm not wedded to either of these sequences. But what's missing from locking in early is that broad, not call for architects, but that the scope.
Okay, I think I have a response if you don't mind.
Please.
What you said about you want to have a bunch of architects come to the city with ideas and visions and imagery and show their artistic talent before you choose the architect. Did I get that right? Okay. Totally understand. On either design build or all this move to progressive, because that's what we're talking about, you don't lose that. You're just, all the teams you're interviewing will bring their expression to the table. They're going to show you their work, images of past projects, when they're currently working. You're not hiring going, I haven't even seen the design yet. I'm not doing this.
They may even present ideas.
They will.
Interview.
They want to.
Yeah.
I don't think you don't.
I don't want to see what you built for somebody else in a completely different place. I want someone to come in and say, my God, this is the greatest thing to look up these palm trees at St. Raphael's. I'm going to make this happen. And, that something specific for us.
They will. And we can tweak it this way. Okay. We can be flexible. If you want to take it, all we have to do is stipulate in the RFP that you will bring to the presentation examples of what you think our project or your project will look like. It'll be inspirational images of projects that you can still choose. Say, this team has it nailed. This team is way out to lunch. Forget them. This team did okay. You can score them and rank them before you hire them based on which architectural team outshined or shined the best. You haven't lost that option.
Okay, we've
just a little different.
To San Rafael that can give us that unique San Rafael.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can still do that. We just have to instruct the proposers that, don't come in and show us what you've done in the past and all your 36 libraries. Come show us what San Rafael is owed, could be owed, and we can do it that way. You haven't lost that opportunity. Sorry, John.
Could you also speak to, and we've had a conversation at a staff level around this, is the role of progressive design build and our ability to attract the higher end architecture firms and the GC teams in a way that we might not be able to under a traditional method when or even regular design build, if you want to talk to that.
Yes, there is an advantage, and the advantage is, put it this way, on when we put out an RFP for progressive design build teams to present, the size of the project, the type of the project, the sophistication of the project, and the fact that designers and architects are teaming up to pursue this project, you're going to get the higher sophisticated contractors and architects in this marketplace to team up and pursue this project. It just happens. And one of the reasons it happens is progressive design build hasn't been around for 50 years. It's matured from design build that has been around for a long time, but we took it to another level of just how you structure your team at the onset. But the sophistication of the design build teams will still partner up. You're going to get the best of the best. And with our services, with our help and your guidance or vice versa, we're going to market this project to who we think is suited to go after it. We're going to pre-sell this project in the marketplace. Hey, get ready. This is coming. This RFP is 4 months away from coming out. Go get your teams together. We'll help drive that higher level of sophistication than you'll get. When you go conventional, of course, you don't know who you have right before you have put a shovel on the ground. And you're hoping and praying that the low bidder is that level of sophistication and quality. This allows us to have influence and selection much earlier. So you know who your builder is and you know who your architect is, but most importantly, you're going to have a very union-based, very sophisticated contractor. I can name a few of them, but there is an enhancement of this output.
Well,
That makes sense?
Well, and that in a relationship, because as I'm thinking back to the public safety building, how many times did we have to go back when something didn't work out and we had to redesign this? Are we going to do this? We're going to do that. It was just endless. And if you had, and if you had those teams already interconnected, it would make that so much smoother, I think. And maybe there'd be a little bit of anticipation of those things and solving them so that.
We're going to run out of time, but I could go on and on in a deeper layer about this type of it. It's a good question. We're here to answer anything.
The next slide is helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, like, when does this decision need to be made?
To stay on our overall schedule, your March 31 goal of opening, it needs to be decided in the next 2 months.
This spring.
Yeah, this spring. So you need to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's related to this slide, or is it actually related to, I think, what you were teeing up, which is that this may need to go to the council for policy decision. And I'm discerning why, but I'd love for you to talk about it rather than have me guess at it, but.
Yeah, no, so in order to do progressive design build, there are some local policy changes that we have to take to the council. And Andrea's been helping us with this, but we're also looking at getting a special contract attorney to assist with this work as well. The first is that the council will need to adopt a conflict of interest policy, and that's just to address the ability of an entity that is performing services relating to like the solicitation of design work to be able to be on for the entirety of the project. Not a major heavy lift by any means, but it's just one of those we need to line ourselves up from a legal standpoint. The second part is, and this is I think maybe what you were getting at, is under the enabling legislation for progressive design build, it states that these projects have to use a skilled and trained workforce. So what does that mean? We need to use building trades, unions to provide all of the labor, which is not, out of the realm of reason for any kind of vertical construction project in the Bay Area. You're going to be using the trades. You can do that through either what's called an enforceable commitment, where the subcontractors and contractors have to, use a skilled and trained workforce, but it requires a level of regular reporting, reviewing certified payroll, and ensuring that the people who are working on the project are meeting the requirements under the state code. Mm-hmm. There's an administrative burden with that considerably. I think you have to do monthly reporting, which is an administrative load that we would have to kind of figure out how we would do that locally. The other option is to engage with the North Bay Building and Trades Council and engage around a project labor agreement where we have the pre-bargaining, everything's set up from a labor union standpoint from the beginning. And then we attach that with the RFQ so that any GCs that are applying for the project and any of their subs know that they're going to need to be signatories to the master labor agreements of the different various trades that will be participating in the program.
Wait, and isn't that's the norm, isn't it? For government projects?
Well, it's yes and no. The old historical way is that you can, as long as the contractor and subcontractors are paying prevailing wage, that's the key. And you don't have to be a union signatory contractor just to pay prevailing wage. You can be open shop and pay prevailing wage. This kind of takes it to one next level, which I'm going to say this without being pro-union or non-union, okay? But it ups the ante in the level of sophistication and quality when you go to a skilled workforce, which kind of means you're hiring a union contractor and subcontractors. It kind of gravitates to that. It's not against the law, but you're going in a direction that you're going to almost guarantee that you're dealing with union contractors.
Just a little back.
And you're not people do it all the time. Sorry.
My recollection, but neither here nor there, is that the legislation that allowed for this to be applied in public government was sort of a brokered negotiation with labor and skilled trades that says we'll give you a path to an expedited delivery method so long as we can guarantee that basically union skilled trade.
And
you nailed it.
do we have any rule of thumb for what the additional cost element is?
Is it baked into your
my
estimate earlier?
There's two questions there.
Sorry.
Very good questions. I'll answer yes, it's baked into our estimate.
Yeah.
To answer your question, the difference between union scale and prevailing wage is negligent. We're talking pennies per hour of wage. It's the same wage.
Yeah.
Okay. The unions help set prevailing wage. That's how unionized, obviously, our state is.
In a practical matter, you're doing union labor anyway.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter. So cost wise,
It should.
this shouldn't drive up costs, but it might limit our pool a little bit because it has to be 100% union shop, not just somebody willing to pay prevailing wage.
And I would argue the administrative cost onto the city, when you're looking at the enforceable commitment versus the PLA is going to be much less of an administrative burden on our staff than doing the enforceable commitment. And I've watched the study sessions with the Board of Supervisors who was grappling kind of with these same questions. And that's where they ultimately landed, was to do a PLA because they knew that the administrative load was going to be less.
Can I throw one more thing out? And I'm short on time, but when we kind of advance this conversation, either back to this group or to the council, I do think it'll be helpful, important, not just to describe these methods, but kind of the pros and cons. Because there's both a process, there's how it impacts the timeline, there may be how it impacts costs, but I recall having done some of these in other places, there's also the risk. Right, you're managing the risk of the total project cost. Like when in this timeline do you get your absolute price is important. And so maybe with a good team that you're going to get the project you want for the price versus we have a design, we have an engineer's estimate, we're going out to bid, the big climate went this way or that way. So you're managing your overall project.
There's a risk transfer that comes much.
Right, so the risk transfer, I remember, was a huge part of so just, there's a lot more to it than, do we like how this team comes together or how this team comes together? There's a bit more to it.
There's deeper layers and.
We just lay those out for.
We can do that. We can do that whenever you guys think it's warranted.
Later this fall.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Okay, I support as well. Yeah, for the sake of time, I think everything you just said is right. I would underscore, how you think about characterizing risks, what are the mitigations and different stage gates of the different options. For the sake of time, would be okay if we turn to public comment for 4B? All right, opening the public comment for 4B. Any comments or questions? Okay. In that case, we have moved to our fifth item, which is adjournment to our next meeting, which is scheduled for June 2nd at 10 a.m.
Yep.
In this room.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is a big room. I counted 16 people at the table and 2 folks online. So a lot of attention here, and I hope that the community is excited for what's ahead. And I know I am, and I think Councilman Bushy is as well.
Thank you. You're excellent. I love talking to you because your questions are spot on. And so same with you. So thank you for the engagement. Perfect.
Well, there are 3 more, just like us.
That's right.
That are gonna have more questions for you.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Great. Thank you both.
I feel like I'd earn more respect from you if I were more skeptical. I'll work on that.
There's time. Yeah. These are all standardized now. I'm Lawrence and Val.
Yeah, I don't think I.
Hey.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Steve.
Yes.